Hello dear viewers of my channel. Nice to welcome you all. This is the new part of Lloyd. Before I start the video, I would like to thank this guy for supporting the channel with a paid subscription, and a special thanks to this guy for supporting the channel with donations. Really thank you guys. I also want to thank all the viewers who wrote comments, put likes under the video and subscribe to the channel. If not for you, I would have long ago abandoned YouTube. Thank you guys. Have fun watching, friends. Everything was fine in the kingdom of Magentano. The moon was shining outside. It was snowing heavily behind the mountain in the southwest and conditions were still harsh. At the time of the events in the village of the Veneto tribe, a boy presented his mother with an incredibly beautiful bouquet that he had collected for her personally. His mother was very happy about the gift, and said that the bouquet was really beautiful while stroking the boy's head. At that time, the father of the family burst into the house shouting what kind of talk was going on in his house. It turned out that the father of the family was the chief, who said in a loud voice that warriors cannot pick flowers, calling his son a brat. After these words, the father instantly broke the bouquet that his own son was picking with such effort, and then instantly turned to his wife, resenting what she was teaching their son. The girl turned away and began to say that the son would say what the head wanted to hear anyway, while the man began to say that the boy would say what he had to say and began to tell the family that their tribe was being fought and conquered and that only strength could protect them. The father shouted and asked if his child was going to do non-masculine things, while the boy kept on apologizing with his head bowed. After another shout from the father, the boy started apologizing with all his might, after which the father punished his son by making him pay respect to his ancestors for an hour, while he sat down at the table with his head bowed. The man looked carefully at his wife. He thought about the fact that his wife does not even smile at the sight of him. He also decided that even his own child hates him as well. Then the man hit the table with a mug full of beer, thinking that he only had to tolerate this attitude to himself. The man began to drown in beer while thinking that no amount of kindness and mercy could save his life. A little while later morning came, and the voice of a man who said that it was time to go hunting was heard throughout the village. All the warriors of the settlement gathered in one place and began to make strange movements, and with such strange movements they continued on their way. Without slowing down they continued their movement, and then they changed their posture and began to sing that they were descendants of exiled warriors, that they had taken food from traders, and that they had sacrificed their lives in battles to get food. They also sang together about being lawbreakers in this barren land. The man looked forward with a confident look to the noise his subordinates were making. They sang about the mountains, and that behind them was their homeland, namely the kingdom of Manjito, which they must all take revenge on. It was with these words that tears came to the head's eyes. They were about to pass through the harsh mountains, when suddenly the leader noticed that the harsh mountains had turned into an incredibly beautiful and livable place. He silently looked at the vistas that had been completely transformed, and then his face showed surprise at what he had seen. A little while later, in one of the houses, there was a report of all the events that had happened to the mountain. One of the men said that it was unlikely that the kingdom was planning an invasion because there were no soldiers in sight, which pleased the head. Then he began to say that 70% of their ancestors had died crossing these harsh mountains and he had never dreamed of it. Then he bowed his head, preparing to say something, then proudly raised his head saying that now they could move on. A little while later he gathered all the men and announced that they would invade those lands. He ordered to spare no one and kill everyone. Suddenly he saw something in front of him. It turned out to be Lloyd along with Xavier and one demon. One of the enemy warriors assumed that the guys wanted to negotiate, while their leader said that he only recognized force. He started saying that they would cut off their heads, while Lloyd seemed to get angry and came closer and closer. Then Lloyd made a demonic face which instantly terrified all the enemies who came to fight. They just couldn't believe in the existence of a man who could deliver such a mental blow with just one look. Lloyd asked why their guests drew their weapons. Then with a mad look he suggested to the opponents to solve everything with words, as civilized people do. The enemy leader was really afraid of Lloyd, but mentally he understood that he as a leader should not give any slack. Then he looked at Lloyd again, who looked incredibly scary. He also noticed the fact that even the horn guy next to him did not look as scary as Lloyd. The head of the warrior settlement was shaking with fear. He looked silently at his enemy. He remembered scolding his son for shaking, saying that warriors don't shake, and he remembered the look on his wife's face as she tried not to look at him. Now he was also drenched in sweat at the sight of Lloyd. The head introduced himself as the descendants of the banished clan, then instantly ordered all his subordinates to attack, and a moment later a great number of men were in the air ready to strike at Lloyd, who in turn had his murderous shovel ready to attack. A little while later the leader was sitting tied up in front of Lloyd, who complained that the opponents forced him to fight. Even though he is a pacifist, Lloyd said that these warriors should not touch them and then they would not have any conflicts. The opponents started shouting that for them the battle ends only after death and that he would come back hundreds of times to take revenge. Lloyd said that it would be easy for him to finish off all the enemy in an instant, while the leader said that he would rather die than surrender. Lloyd ordered Xavier to release the prisoner, saying that although it would cause problems, it was too much for a pacifist like him. Xavier suggested simply taking the enemy head into custody, while Lloyd called it the same kind of violence, adding that he certainly had a wife and children to feed. He couldn't lock up his entire family. Xavier looked at the huge crowd of opponents. He suggested hiring someone to just kick these warriors out every time, while Lloyd instantly dismissed the idea, saying he wouldn't spend any money on it. Lloyd started talking about how they had already spent a lot of money, and the purpose of their visit, namely to find a way to save money, adding that they might be able to do it thanks to these guys. Xavier didn't understand how that was possible and asked Lloyd, who immediately started to get up from the bed, then made a really mad face and said that they would do it peacefully. All the warriors left with their heads down, while the image of a real demon, in the person of the protagonist, loomed over them. A little while later, in the new settlement of the protagonist at night, the warriors gathered in a hidden place and watched the situation. Their leader, with a confident look, said that last time they acted too brazenly and decided that this time it would be different. He made a confident face and then said that attacking at night is the best strategy to win. They watched the children playing late at night and thought about using them as hostages. One of the children was grabbed by a man who threatened the child not to scream, otherwise he would get 100 slaps. The children were worried and didn't know what to do. It was forbidden to attack people. Suddenly one of the children started talking about something the Demon King had said. In the past, Lloyd told the children that there are only a few types of people in the world, namely those who need only a little beating, and those who should be severely beaten. After that, the captured child instantly changed and a strong aura began to emanate from his body. The other children also began to emit a terrifying aura, after which the head of the opponents instantly received a strong punch right on his stomach. A little while later, the defeated warriors gathered together thinking about how their children could be so strong. The leader started to say that no matter what method they used, the victory should be theirs. Then he started to get up from the table. He was walking down the street thinking that they hadn't hunted or looted in days and that his family might be hungry, but as soon as he entered the house he was shocked to see a cooked piglet. He immediately asked the family where the food came from, and the wife replied that it had been caught. Then on closer inspection he realized that the wife had personally gone hunting to feed her family, which made the head of the settlement ashamed, because they should be the ones to feed their families. He immediately started shouting that hunting and robbery is a man's business and a woman's business is to stay at home and take care of the children, after which his wife asked him what he thinks to do if they are starving. To which the man could not give an answer and continued to look in the direction of his wife. The next day the sun was shining very brightly. One of the wagons was moving along the road while the warriors gathered on a rock thinking that the wagon looked packed, whereupon the man instantly ordered everyone to attack and a huge number of warriors jumped towards the wagon, whereupon the owner of the wagon surrendered and they celebrated their victory. The man instantly opened the wagon thinking that today was the day they would all be able to eat their fill. But all he saw inside the wagon was Loida, along with Xavier and the demon, who looked fiercely at the brazen man. The man instantly began to break out in a sweat. He then turned to his men saying that they had just made a mistake. He tried to leave, but the demon instantly stopped the man, causing him to feel primal fear. Xavier stated in front of all the robbers that they would now give demons to each wagon and now their robberies would never succeed. Suddenly Lloyd's voice was heard and everyone turned their attention to the other side. Lloyd started to get off the wagon with a mad look. It looked like a bloodbath was about to happen. But in reality Lloyd made a nice face. Then he said he had another option. He started talking about how the wagon was full of food and that these guys had a way to get it, he said. He would prove to these warriors that they could get the food. Then he showed a bag of money, which caused an immediate negative reaction in the warrior heads because money can't buy them. Lloyd silently wiggled his finger, telling his opponents not to jump to conclusions, and then he simply put the money in the hands of the warrior leader, after which he took the money again, and pointing to the wagon said that this is now the wagon of these warriors because they bought it. Lloyd started to leave saying that the warriors should eat with their families today. The head did not understand what had just happened. His bewilderment was clearly expressed on his face. A little while later their table was full of food, which made the head feel uncomfortable. He thought about the fact that he had only taken food for his family, But his warrior pride would not allow him to touch this food. He just clenched his teeth thinking that from tomorrow he would start hunting, because he did not want to take handouts. Meanwhile, they encountered a huge pet of the protagonist, who looked down on all the warriors. The head was scared to death and had a lot of sweat on his face, while the pet of the protagonist, prepared to attack, then instantly scattered all the opponents with his blows. All the men fell to the ground with great speed. They all lost any chance of resisting, while Lloyd walked around them with a confident gait. Lloyd began to talk about how every time they hunted they were injured and how small prey was too small for food, but large prey was dangerous to hunt. Lloyd said that now the men could not worry, for there was a great opportunity for them, and then he gave money to the head of the warriors again, and then he took the money again like last time and gave huge chunks of meat to the men, saying that this way was much easier. A little while later the leader said that next time they would definitely hunt with their own hands. One of the subordinates wanted to say something that made the leader angry. He said that they could just get food from Lloyd and not risk their lives on the hunt. This caused a surge of rage in the leader, who instantly grabbed the man, saying that they should shut up. The man was angry, thinking that his subordinates were weak, and also thinking about the warrior pride they had squandered. Suddenly he heard his wife's voice and looked sternly in that direction. The girl was genuinely happy that her man was not injured in the hunt. This shocked the head of the village. He had no idea that such a thing was possible. While his wife began to turn around, his face changed radically after these words. A little while later in the main character's settlement, it turned out that the head had come to continue buying food with money. Lloyd said that as partners they had to make promises to each other. Lloyd instantly pulled out a huge stack of papers and put it in front of the head of the warriors, then asked him to sign the documents with a sly smirk on his face. Lloyd, with an incredibly mad look on his face, declared that from that moment on the head of the warriors became Lloyd's partner, and it looked like a contract with a demon. Thank you all so much for watching this video to the end. It's really nice to have you. I want to announce that very soon I will be releasing a retelling of the new manhwa, so please support it. I really hope you do. And about Lloyd, the new video will be released as soon as the new chapters come out. So be sure to click on the notifications so you don't miss it. Thanks again. See you all soon.